Of all the foes in this game, I'll bet if there was one you were hoping didn't get a super powerful amped up dream rematch, it was Grimm. He has everything he had before, now even faster and hitting twice as hard. The only thing in this fight which doesn't deal 2 damage is falling off the ledge. This is the fight, right here. This is the fight that separates us. Are you willing to settle for good enough, or can you go the distance? If you can beat Nightmare King Grimm, I fully believe you can beat any challenge in this game. And you know what? I'll bet you can beat Nightmare King Grimm. All it takes is knowing what he can do. To that end, he comes at us once again with the Fire Dash, the Double Dive, the Fire Bats, Curtain Call, Firestorm, and one addition, Inferno. The Fire Dash has received the least changes from the original fight. It still has all of its unique properties, including sometimes switching attacks entirely to the Fire Bats if you force him to back up. The only real change here is that after the uppercut, he'll release 6 flames. However, the spacing is identical to the 5 flames from before, with one falling directly beneath him and the others fanning out. So essentially, he just adds an extra flame to either the left or right for some extra range. A bit more threatening, but nothing has changed about how we want to dodge this attack. You can dodge away from the first dash, but dodging through him with the Shadow Dash will likely put you in the best position to land a slash. And then you want to be almost underneath where he bursts into flames, so you're right next to the center one, not worrying about the arcs of the others. The Double Dive, on the other hand, is probably the most different from what it once was. Now both movements are accompanied by a trail of flame, all of which is a hitbox. Most notably, this makes it impossibly to dodge the grounded lunge by shade cloaking through him, but once again, if you approach this attack the same way you did in the first fight, not much has changed. You might almost think I did that on purpose. So once again, Shadow Dash through the first dive, then immediately jump and try for a nail pogo for good measure. The only difference now is that on your jump, you'll have to make sure to move forward so as to avoid the airborne fire, and you'll have to use a double jump or a dash to stay in the air until the second trail of fire dissipates. The Fire Bats have received a bit of an overhaul. He will now launch 4 bats instead of 3, and they each begin at different heights, but thankfully always in the same order. First high, then low, then high, then low again. They also move a lot faster than before, but their vertical homing hasn't been made stronger, so in a way, they're actually less threatening, because unless you're extremely far away from Grimm, the homing on these guys isn't going to come into play. Dodging this attack is pretty simple. The first bat will only hit you if you panic and jump as soon as he appears, so basically, just walk forwards underneath it. Jump over the second bat, and Shadow Dash either through or underneath the third. The distance of the dash will carry you over the top of the last bat, no problem. And you should be in position to hit Grimm at least once. Much like before, he will teleport away if you get too close before he releases the last bat. But now, if he does so, he'll launch 2 bats at once from his new position. If you ever find yourself facing this version of the attack, I recommend just shade cloaking through. Curtain Call's increased speed makes it markedly more intimidating, but still, it's usually just a matter of a slight nudge to the left or right. Honestly, these spikes have surprisingly thin hitboxes. The only real change here is that Grimm won't be on stage when this attack happens, so no more getting in some easy damage. Also be aware of the fact that this arena no longer has walls, but don't get too clever and think about dodging this attack by hanging out off stage. The spikes appear there, too. You can still heal the mask, but depending on what attack he does next, you could be cutting it pretty close. The Firestorm has nothing new, which, frankly, is a godsend. The fireballs do move a little quicker though, and this can make it a bit tougher to dodge if 2 columns in a row cover the bottom row. But you still have a double jump, so no need to touch the ground between every column. Just keep a cool head and dance to his tune. You'll get him when he's done. His one new attack, Inferno, consists of 4 pillars of flame, spawned directly beneath you in a sequence. The telegraph for this attack is pretty generous, so as long as you're not standing still, the first flame shouldn't get you. Dodging the subsequent 3 is all about space management. If you use up all your space too quickly and get to the edge of the stage, you'll have to double back by shadow dashing through one of the pillars. This whole attack really isn't too bad though, and provides one of the best opportunities in this fight to heal or do damage. Once you're clear of the 4th pillar's spawn, you can land some attacks, launch a spell, or focus up a mask. Whatever you do, just don't let the opportunity pass you by. So game plan wise, what's changed? Honestly, not too much. You still want to dash directly underneath him whenever you see him spawn in midair, even with the addition of a new aerial attack. It's still your main defense against Double Dive. The other 3 attacks remain all about knowing the telegraphs and responding accordingly. Luckily, the fire bats are effectively more telegraphed now that he starts by launching one from up high. So it's really just Fire Dash and Curtain Call that you have to be especially aware of. It's a bit of a weird tip, but the sound cue for Curtain Call is extremely distinct. So, if that attack in particular is giving you trouble, try turning up your volume or playing with headphones so you'll be able to hear it coming, and not just see it. Past that, it's just a matter of getting in what hits you can. Don't get greedy. 1,500 HP isn't the kind of number you can just blitz down. This fight will require patience and finesse. But he can't learn. He can't evolve. With every attempt, you'll learn his attacks just a bit more until you're his nightmare. The only boss that can be fought in the overworld, but never has to be fought in one of the other 4 pantheons, Nightmare King Grimm. This is his attuned form, which is a little bit weaker than his overworld form, ouch. Having only 1250 HP. Still a very difficult fight in his own right. Do not get complacent here. Ow, shoot. Don't hit me again. Okay, we're good. And I'm still being very gutsy with the Shade Souls through that Firestorm, which is an enormous risk, honestly. One I need not take, but it's just fun to do. It's fun to take risks. Why are we even here if not to challenge ourselves? To take on the greatest trials that this world has to offer. So risk myself I shall. Now, technically, that fight is easier than the original fight we did in his tent. 1250 health down from 1500. But his Ascended fight does give him an upgrade in his HP. Up to 1,650. Not the most of anything we've ever fought, but strong enough to contend with. Now, his statue is quite well placed down here in the Hall of Gods, being right next to the Pure Vessel, and I'd say this fight requires a very similar mindset to that. If you're willing to learn the attacks, that was my own fault. If you're willing to learn the attacks, focus in on what he is capable of doing, what every telegraph indicates, this fight's no problem. If you try to do it by reaction alone, this is going to be an extremely difficult fight. So I don't really have any better advice past what I've already given than to say practice makes perfect, and as always, if you are having trouble learning his attacks, go in without the goal of actually doing any damage to him. Just see how long you can survive, how long you can go without taking any damage, and you'll find yourself learning the attack and their patterns much faster. Oh shoot. Man, this is a long fight. Well, I did that without taking damage, so that might as well have been Radiant, but let's see if I can replicate it. Now, Radiant Nightmare King Grimm is one there is absolutely no shame in overcharming for, but since we don't actually use a lot of spells, at least in the strategies that I recommend, what are we going to bring in? I've decided to add on Long Nail on top of what I've already got, just to give myself that little bit of extra buffer when we need to nail Pogo over him and stuff like that. Alright, once more with feeling. Ow, shoot, that went past. Somewhat similarly to the Sisters of Battle, this is another fight where you really just need to get a feel for the rhythm of it. The frequency of his attacks. How much safe time and breathing room you have between each one. Once you get that down, it's all just a matter of knowing the telegraphs, as I said. And if you know his telegraphs, then you've basically already won. From there, all you really need to do is avoid succumbing to the pressure, realizing that you're getting close to the end, and finishing strong instead of letting your heartbeat get the best of you. He keeps getting me with the bats. Once again, you can use his Pufferfish Firestorm attack to gauge how far you are along in the fight as a sort of... Whoa, that was close. As a sort of impromptu HP bar. He will use it when he gets down to 75%, 50%, and 25% of his HP. So feel free to use it to gauge how well you're doing, though if you just sort of let yourself zone out and not focus on that, you'll probably end up doing better thanks to, once again, avoiding succumbing to the pressure of realizing you're doing well. It all depends on your mindset, and mine is to die. There we go. That wasn't terrible, but it was no pushover, that's for sure. But we got him.
Thanks so much for watching Boss Blitz. As always, feel free to hit the playlist in the top left of the screen to see just about everything else Hollow Knight related. And next time we're going after the White Defender.